Hello, welcome to Pop Culture Shark, a live stream where we cover all kinds of pop culture. I'm Final Monkey.
And I'm Caleb.
We've got a big show for you today. Today we are looking at what is one of the greatest rogue galleries in comic books, probably second only to Batman. We're going to
Yeah.
hit Spider-Man's rogue gallery. We're both pretty big Spider-Man fans, so this is going to be an interesting discussion about his top 10.
hmm
But before we get to that, Caleb, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's been kind of it's been a hectic week when it comes to work and currently searching for a new job since me and my brother moved out of the house into our own apartment. And so, uh, what better way to cool down over the weekend than going out and getting the new Lego Star Wars game and just playing it the whole weekend. Um,
Nice.
yeah, if you haven't played it, anyone out there, like I implore you to play it. It's becoming one of my favorite games. I'm having a blast with it, and it is so funny. But yeah, how are you doing this week?
Pretty good. We had some scary storms here earlier in the week, but
Oh
we got
yeah.
we got through those. Yeah, I know. I thought I put that past me when I moved out of Kentucky, but Texas is a little bit different. But that we do get tornadoes down here, so they that can be a little scary. So
Is it the same as in Kentucky? Because the joke is if there's a tornado warning, which means that there might be a tornado, that might not be. You go down in the basement. But if there's a tornado watch, which means they've seen a tornado. So if there's a tornado watch, you don't go in the basement. You go on the porch and start looking for it.
well, we don't have basements down here, so
Ah,
that makes it a little problematic. But uh, yeah, I mean, there's always those people that as soon as they hear there's a tornado watch, they go outside to see if they can see it.
oh, that's
Um,
me. That's me.
I don't. I think it's okay to glance outside, but then get back inside. It just depends on what is going on outside. I mean, use
Yeah.
your judgment, but you know, try to get to safety.
If I can't stand up, I'm going. If I get knocked down by the wind, that's it.
Yeah, it was crazy. One lady tried to escape the tornado car, and it just picked up the car and threw it. So it's
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it's terrifying. So all right, but we're doing good. And I got to finally go see Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
We've been talking about that movie quite a bit, and we'll talk about that after we talk about Spider-Man today. So that'll be fun. So, all right,
Mm.
let's get to some news. Um, there's actually quite a bit going on. One of the big things to watch out for this week is the Warner Brothers Discovery merger. If it didn't finalize Friday, it's going to be like Monday. It's like a done deal.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of executives were they said they left. I think a lot of them were fired last week,
Yeah.
including what's her name, Sarnoff, the one who
Yes.
was very critical of the Zack Snyder fans. Um, so take that what you will. It's I don't like seeing people lose their jobs, but these people are quite wealthy, so you know,
Yeah. Right.
I think they'll be just fine. Um, so just keep an eye on that. You know, there's big question marks about what direction the DC Comics and DC Universe is going, the
hmm
movies, everything. I think they're kind of at a crossroads right now. Do they continue down this like Zack Snyder verse? Do you get rid of all that? Do you start something brand new? Do you stick with the Batman? So
Honestly, there's with the merger and with Ezra Miller becoming extremely problematic. I would not be surprised if they were to scrap everything and like work really hard for the next 5 years and come out with a reboot of like a whole universe.
I can't see them hold off on their moneymaker for 5 years, but I could. Flash is already done. It's filmed. It's just sitting there on the shelf.
Right.
I could see them. I don't think they're going to remove Ezra Miller. It'd be too expensive, but
Right.
I could see them maybe tweaking the film. This is a big reboot at the end, and just clear the slate of everything.
Yeah.
If you want to keep making the Batman movies okay in their own little pocket, but the rest of the DC universe just needs a big reset,
Hmm.
and just do like a huge reset. But you got to do it right. You got to get like a Paul Dini or a somebody in charge of it. You know,
Well, and the thing is, like, all the right people already left.
yeah, it. I don't know. I think you can. I think it can be done, but it's got to take some leadership and a clear vision of what they want to do, and Hollywood is not always good at
Right.
that. So definitely keep your eyes on that. There's a big trial coming out this week with Johnny Depp and his ex. We won't say his ex's name because she's problematic if you say her name on YouTube.
Yep.
But that is another one to watch. They are calling in a lot of the Hollywood studios as witnesses, and they don't like that.
Hmm.
So that will be a interesting one to keep your eye on this week. If you like this stuff, me, I love reading and watching the behind the scenes stuff. Uh, I find that drama usually more entertaining than the actual movies.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
Um, so our other big news, we had I guess it was a surprise announcement. I don't really
I
follow the series, but
It's sort of okay. So it was a surprise for me. So I mean, it's the 20th anniversary, and so we knew that like we were going to be getting something. I had no idea that we were going to be getting a full length trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4.
yeah, and I- I'm not a huge Kingdom Hearts guy. I did buy the series for my kids for Christmas. I still haven't played it. It's still sitting there, but it is something I've been curious about. I've heard it's super confusing, but
Yes.
um, I'm very curious about it just because, for those who don't know, Kingdom Hearts is an RPG that takes place across a variety of Disney worlds.
Yeah, it's like
And,
Marvel versus Capcom, but it's like Disney and Final Fantasy.
yeah, so one of the big things is what worlds are they going to explore this time? We saw a forest that looked very realistic.
Hmm.
Some people swear they saw the foot of an AT-AT in the background. So is it indoor? Are we going to be teaming up with Luke? I could see them pulling Grogu into it. I could definitely see that.
Oh yeah.
Um, so we're both kind of. I could definitely see them doing it, but at the same time, it's like, do you really want them to do it? Is kind
Yeah.
of like I don't. Star Wars is one of those things I'd like for Star Wars to just kind of stay in its own little pocket.
Right. Honestly, I'd love Square Enix to make a Star Wars game.
Oh yeah, like similar to the Guardians of the Galaxy game, and yeah, I could
Yeah.
definitely see that.
I'm thinking like Final Fantasy 15 or something like that, like a party of 4. You get like a Jedi in there and bounty
Yeah,
hunter.
and why don't you do or just do like a loose adaptation of the classic trilogy where you have choices though that you can make,
Oh
and you're
yeah.
playing as Luke, Han, and Leia, and you can switch between characters. I think that would be really fun.
Oh yeah. But as far as Kingdom Hearts 4, I'm super excited about it. Kingdom Hearts has always been something that's ingrained in my childhood. I was introduced to Ocarina of Time and Kingdom Hearts 2 around the same time. And so those two games are very much interconnected in my head. And so with with it coming out, and it looks fantastic. Like Sora's always kind of looked like more of a Disney character, but with at least because we don't know. I'm not sure if this is if it was like a CG trailer, or if it was like in-game graphics. It's probably not. There's no way that we got that much this early on. But Sora just looks straight up like a Final Fantasy character now. Like he looks like he could be in like Final Fantasy 13 or something like
Yeah,
that.
he lost kind of that cartoony look. They're going for a
Yeah.
more realistic look, which is
Yeah.
interesting. So
Yeah. But it looks like the Goofy and Donald are sticking with their
style.
yeah, with their style. But honestly, um, he's in like a city, like a realistic cityscape. So, and you know how like whenever he goes from world to world, like he changes like forms and whatnot. Maybe this is like the real world that he's in, and so that's why he's got a more realistic look to him.
Right. Oh, so you're talking about like when he goes like the Steamboat Willie, he turns black and white and all that. Yeah.
Exactly. And so like if he's in like the quote unquote real world, then him having
Gotcha.
that's a theory that I mean that I just thought about that off the top of my head. But yeah, no, I'm super excited for Kingdom Hearts 4.
Cool. Yeah, it's always been one of those series I'd like to get into, but you know,
it's hard.
There's so much, it takes so much time, and
what and the thing is like they have like the story so far thing, which is what I think you got the boys, where it's got everything. But the thing is it's just like, in what order do you play it? And then like each game is like 40 hours long, and
yeah,
sometimes the portable games are more important than the main titles.
Yeah, and I think all those are in the collection. I got them.
They are, yeah.
Yeah. So, it's kind of one of those things where I like the idea of getting into it, but it's also like, do I really want to? Like my brain's already full of all this other fandom facts, and like, do I want to cram all that more in there? And it's like,
Kingdom Hearts is a rough one to get into, honestly. Like with I wish I could get out of it, but I just can't.
I hear you. All right, so let's get on to our main topic tonight, and that is Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery Top 10. So the way this works is each of us made our own top 10 list. So it's actually top 20. And surprisingly, once again, we don't have a whole lot of overlap between the two lists. I thought they would be almost similar lists, and they are not.
Yeah. Well, and like I'm trying to figure out what it is, because I have some old reliables on my list, and so like, I mean, there's a generational gap, but I don't think it's the generational gap that's causing this.
Yeah, I just think we both have very different tastes in what we like.
That's a possibility.
Also, there's some characters that were on my list that I kicked off the list because I had too many, and they are on your list. So it's just Spider-Man has a lot of bad guys to choose from.
What we have made is a comprehensive top 20 list.
Pretty much. And there's still some very classic villains that are not on either of our lists. So yeah, it's interesting. So, all right. There's a lot of screens I've got to share, so let's see how this is going to work.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Oh, I found this nice picture, and I forgot to pull it up, of all our villains. Okay, so we'll get to Caleb's number 10. So let me pull it up. It'd be great if these would automatically close when I'm done with them, but they're not so nice. So his number 10 is one I did not think of, and I wish I had.
Right. My number 10 is J. Jonah Jameson. Now, of course, J. Jonah Jameson is not like a villain in the most traditional sense, but honestly, he very much is a foil for Spider-Man, and sometimes causes more problems than his regular rogues gallery. And I don't think that none of the movies or TV shows, except for No Way Home really got it down pat. That like JJ can be malicious about it,
Yeah. This is a character when I started reading comic books. I started reading in the early '90s. I mean, he was cool, but I never really cared about him. And then when I started reading the old comic books from the '60s and stuff, now I'm like, oh, this character is great. He is hilarious,
Mhm.
and he's so much fun. And I get why people love him. Um, you're always kind of like, does he really have a heart of gold? Does he doesn't? You know,
Mhm.
there have been stories where like Peter got put on trial for something, and he secretly paid all of Peter's legal bills and stuff. You know, so
Mhm.
so deep down, he's not as bad as he seems. But yeah,
Yeah. I
he's a
I
good.
I think the JJ scene that like needs to happen in every adaptation is whenever the villain comes looking for who takes the pictures of Spider-Man, and he's like, "Oh man, I don't know. They're sent in anonymously."
Yeah,
They did that in Spectacular, and they did that in the Sam Raimi films. I think that that's an important scene for JJ to have.
right. Yeah, that he's not, because he comes across as a jerk, that he just hates Spider-Man for no reason, and that he all he cares about is money and success, and he's not. It's kind of like almost like Scrooge McDuck, where when you first see Scrooge McDuck, you're like, oh, all he cares about is money. This guy's a jerk, and then once you get into it, you're like, oh no, there's way more to his character. So yeah, J. Jonah Jameson, great character. Uh, I wish I put him on my list. So cool. All right. So next is one that people will debate whether or not he is a villain. This is my number 10. And I say when he first appeared, he very much was a villain.
Oh, I know who this is. Okay, go ahead.
I don't think you do. This is Kane. So
Nope, I thought you were gonna say Punisher.
no, not Punisher. No, I'm a big fan of the Clone Saga. Actually, I know it gets a lot of ridicule, but it's actually not as bad as people say. The
I don't
problem is
think so. Yeah.
it goes on for way too long. Is the biggest problem. Um, but Kane is such a fascinating character. This Peter Parker clone that everybody just kind of forgot about. Ben Riley got all the attention, and so Kane is just this. He hates his brother Ben Riley. And he has the mark of Cain, which is so cool. Basically, he touches your face, and he uses like his spider powers to leave a permanent mark on your face. So he like deforms you. Which you think about, Peter could stick to walls. It would make sense that he could, you know, mess up your face if he used those powers on you.
Right.
Um, just a cool character, and I know that they've tried to make him a hero as a Scarlet Spider and some different things. I haven't read so many of those stories, but
I don't think it works.
yeah, I think he's a cool character. I think Ben Riley are cool characters, and I wish they could figure out what to do with them.
Yeah. Have you seen his Scarlet Spider costume? I don't like it.
That's the one that's mostly red, right?
Yeah, red with a little bit of like black in it.
Yeah, and that was after Spider Island, where he was killed and
Mhm.
reborn or whatever, right?
Yep.
I've read Spider Island, but I never read any more of what happened to him after that. Any thoughts on Kane?
Not really. Like I'm not actually too familiar with Kane. The most of what I know is him as the Scarlet Spider, so I don't know much about him as a villain, and I'm not a big fan of him as a hero.
No, I think he's very interesting as this jealous character that just hates Ben Riley. Like,
Mhm.
you know, I'm deformed. Why can't I? You have the life that I wanted, and I hate you for
Yeah.
it.
I think it definitely, and I mean, like this comes down to, the Clone Saga in general. But I think if they had ended it the correct way, Kane could have been like one of these legendary, overarching villains. Because the way it was supposed to end was Peter was going to get married to Mary Jane. She was going to have a baby. He was going to retire, and then Ben Riley takes over as Spider-Man, and he would be our Spider-Man today. And having Kane kind of be sort of his Venom, I guess, would be really cool.
Yeah, I think the, the one of the big problems at Marvel right now is there's way too many characters that have the name Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
so so it's at least Ben Riley can go by Scarlet Spider, and I think a giving him his own series somewhere other than New York and have Kane be a foil could be fun.
Hmm.
But they never ask my opinion. So, all right. So let's get to your next one. One that I actually debated putting on my list.
Oh
Um,
really? Okay. I didn't know if you'd be too familiar with him.
oh yeah, I know him.
Okay.
So that would be the Spot.
The
Uh,
spot.
no, okay. All right. Let me put the real picture up.
The uh, so the spot is like the spot's crazy. All right, like he's like not like I mean maybe mentally, yeah, but like just the concept of the spot is insane. He's this guy who can make portals and black holes, and that's his power. One of my favorite panels that I've ever seen is him as Spider-Man going to punch Spot in the face, and it goes through the portal that's on his face, and he punches himself. Um, th- there's not much in terms of like the actual characterization of the Spot that like fascinates me. It really just is the concept. That's why he's a little bit lower on my list. Um, but yeah, I also love the episode that because there was a whole episode dedicated to him in the animated series in the 90s.
hmm
And I think that's one of the best episodes of that whole show. And then the Spot's powers become extremely integral to the Green Goblin story at large
hmm
in that show. But yeah, I love the Spot. Like he's so cool.
So the Spot always ends up on lists of the lamest Spider-Man villains, and I don't know why.
Oh
He's
no.
a fun character.
Yeah.
It's basically the old Looney Tunes joke about the holes that they would put. That's the joke. This is
Mhm.
that come to life as a villain. Um, and I think maybe it works better in animated form than it does on the comic book panel.
I think
Uh,
so. Yeah, because the most memorable thing for me is that episode.
yeah, so this is definitely a fun character. Like you say, he doesn't have much of a personality, but I think he is one of those underused characters, and I don't know why they always treat him as a laughing stock. I think he's actually a really cool character.
Honestly, I could probably see him. Oh man. Okay, so it's no secret that I love Superior Foes.
hmm
I think if they were to do Superior Foes again, like he could definitely be on that team.
Yeah, so cool character. I don't know why he gets so much hate. Maybe it's the stories he's been in, but to me, he's pretty awesome. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's move on to the next one. This is a classic one. I'm surprised was not on your list, and that would be Mr. Mysterio. Uh, Mysterio is to me is just a really fun character. Um, as I struggle to pull up this picture, um, Mysterio, he's got all these illusion powers. Not really powers, or just gimmicks he uses. And I just love it when a hero is questioning whether his reality is real or not. It's kind of the dream cheat, like, oh, it was all a dream, or oh, it was all a Mysterio illusion. We tricked you,
Yeah.
But I think those can be really fun stories when they're done right. And I kind of liked his later status, where spoilers, but he was killed off in Daredevil, and
Guardian
then
Devil, yeah.
he started showing up again. It was a question of, did he really die, or is this another illusion, or what's going on here? And I love that whole idea of, did he make a deal with the devil to come back, or is there something else going on? You can never tell with Mysterio.
And that went on for like 20 years.
Oh yeah, yeah, and they had like there was another like protege Mysterio running around and all this, and um, I think that's still kind of going on, actually.
Yeah.
The question of, is he really, did he really die or not? So, any thoughts on Mysterio?
So the reason because I do love Mysterio myself, but the reason I didn't put him on my list is just because um, I I look for like both the villain and the person, and so like I think he's a very cool, over the top villain. In fact, I think one of my favorite stories is Nick Spencer's first issue with the alien invasion. I think that's a really fun one. But there's really never been anything personal about Mysterio.
I get it. Quentin Beck is not the most interesting
Yeah,
character.
yeah.
It's kind of maybe the same problem the Spot has, where the character is cool, but
Mhm.
that you're
Yeah,
missing that personality quirk that
yeah,
gave him the edge.
yeah. But I can put the Spot on my list just because like he is so ridiculous. For me, Mysterio has just kind of always been Scarecrow light. Because I not that their like powers are similar, but they're utilized in a similar way.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm not a fan. I actually really don't like Spider-Man Far From Home, and so there's a possibility that movie kind of like sullied Mysterio for me a little bit.
Well, I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, in general, I really do love him, and I think that like he's the big bad of Shattered Dimensions, and I think like Mysterio as a video game villain is like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's move on to number 8 because we got a lot of these to get through.
Yep.
So number 8 on your list, you didn't quite pick one character, but I get it.
Yeah.
You picked a group of characters, and it'll make sense when I pull them up here. And that would be the symbiotes as a whole.
Yes. In terms of like, I couldn't put Venom on my list. I couldn't put Carnage on my list. I couldn't put Toxin on my list, or Chaos. I couldn't put any of them on my list, or Riot. But symbiotes as a whole, I feel like I could warrant putting them on my list just because like they are so necessary and so legendary in the Spider-Man mythos.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I couldn't pick a favorite. If I had to, it might be Carnage. Just because if I take into account 616 and the Ultimate Universe, Carnage is great in both. Ultimate Venom, I don't think is that good.
I like the idea of the symbiote in Ultimate Universe, but I don't know if Eddie's that interesting in the Ultimate Universe.
No, Eddie is not. But yeah, I love, and I love the video games that involve the symbiotes a lot. Like Ultimate Spider-Man was great, but Web of Shadows was like super awesome, and that was just kind of like a whole war of symbiote thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Maximum Carnage is just like one of those. I couldn't tell you if Maximum Carnage is a good storyline, but I love it.
It's not a good storyline.
But I love it, but it's not good.
I was a huge Venom fan when Carnage came out. That was so big. Like I was going to comic store every week to see if the next issue came out because I was so into that. So I was very excited for Maximum Carnage, and it's 14 parts long.
Yeah,
it should be a 3-part story. It is. It's so. I mean, Carnage it's just like every issue. Carnage killed another 100 people. Okay, and his like bad vibes are affecting the city or something. So the good guys have to fight with the good vibes, and it's just kind of dumb.
yeah.
But it's interesting the number of guest stars and guest villains. I did like Carnage's little family. of Shriek and Doppelganger and Demo Goblin and
Mhm.
was it Carry On? I think it was.
Carry On, yeah.
I do like Carnage having a family. Um, it kind of reminds me like you'll see like these murderous cults or these gangs in real life. It kind of remind me of that, where it's kind of like this group that calls himself a family, and you're like, no, 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 this is this is messed up.
Yeah. Well, and then you got like Spider-Man has his team with like Captain America, Cloak and Dagger, Morbius, uh,
Deathlock and Night Mask or
Night Watch.
Night Watch. I always call him Night Mask. Yeah. Um,
But no, yeah, I think one of the weakest parts about Maximum Carnage is so part one was because I think that this storyline only ran for like a couple months, but it's
it
14
was
parts.
it's 3 months because there was 4 Spider-Man titles every month,
Yeah.
and then they had like the quarterly book as part one and as
Yeah.
the last part.
So that quarterly book was Spider-Man Unlimited #1 and #2. The
Yeah.
thing is you can read Spider-Man Unlimited #1 and Spider-Man Unlimited #2, and you get the whole story.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It is
Yeah.
way too long.
So you might be missing a couple things, but you're not missing 12 issues worth.
I think there's been very cool symbiote stories, but I also think it was overplayed. And they did like a crossover one summer, the War of the Symbiotes, or no, it was just the Planet of the Symbiotes.
Yeah.
And it was just all these throwaway nameless symbiote characters. I think they kind of ruined it.
Mm-hmm.
But then they've done some fun stories since then. I like it like in Guardians of the Galaxy where they'll just encounter somebody who's been possessed by a symbiote or something, just like out in space. All of a sudden, you're like, oh yeah, these things exist out here somewhere, you know. And I haven't read any of the new Venom stuff because I know a lot of this has changed since what was it? Donny Cates did that big story with I can't think of the bad guy's name, but they had like the god of the symbiotes they had to fight and all that.
Oh yeah. What was that?
Yeah.
It was like Back in Black or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah. So that's on my list of things to read one day. It's just got a gazillion parts to it. So
Null.
Noel, thank you, Noel. Yeah. Um, so yeah, the symbiotes are always an interesting concept.
Yeah.
That a fan came up with, which is always interesting. A fan was like, "Hey, what if Spider-Man gets a different costume?" And it kind of just went from there. So, which is weird that Marvel bought the idea from a fan, which never happens. It would never happen today. So,
I mean, that's like the Sonic guys hiring a modder.
Right? Yeah, it's bizarre. Okay, we spent enough time on the symbiotes, which I love symbiotes, but
they're I think they warrant to be talking. We don't need to spend the same amount of them as we do on the spot.
Right, and I think they're a very important part of the mythos.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a great character I'm about to share that got ruined by editorial, and that's the Hobgoblin.
Oh man, this is a great story about. Yeah, definitely ruined by editorial.
It was like one of the biggest and best mysteries in comic books, and then I know the writer left. I don't know if that was on his terms or what before it could be resolved. And then editorial was like, oh, just Ned Leeds or whatever, and then years and years later, he would come back to tell the real story. But I don't even know if that was his. I mean, he'll say it was always his plan, but it I don't know. But I always liked this character design. I think he looks great. The color scheme is great. When I was reading comic books in the 90s, it was always Jason Macendale as Hobgoblin. And him being possessed by Demo Goblin was a lot of fun. Just a cool character. Another one of those ones I don't know if Marvel knows what to do with him anymore. So
yeah, well, I don't know. They seem to struggle with goblins in general.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk more about the goblins as we get down the list.
But that's interesting because Jason McIndale being your Hobgoblin, because my Hobgoblin is Roderick Kingsley.
Yeah, and I think that say what you will about the Dan Slott run, but when he had Uric as the
Phil Urich, yeah,
as Hobgoblin, I kind of like that Hobgoblin with the flaming sword and stuff, and him just being kind of crazy.
yeah.
I think he's kind of fun. Oh, I know who I forgot to put on this list. I want to put Jack o' Lantern on here. He's more of a Venom villain these days,
Yeah.
but I really like that take on this just psychotic. He would definitely be on the Venom list of villains. And he's just got a cool design. How the grenade went off in his face, and now his face actually looks like a jack o' lantern.
Yeah,
and he's just a psycho. So, okay, but yeah, Hobgoblin, great character. If you don't know, because he hasn't been in the movies, he was a guy who basically stumbled across a Green Goblin lab and stole all the technology and stole the costume and stuff and made his own character. And it, like I said, it was a huge mystery for years about who was the Hobgoblin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know the most insane thing that like people tend to forget about? They introduced Hobgoblin first in the animated series.
Before what? Before Green Goblin. That's right. Yeah. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird stuff about that Spider-Man animated series in the 90s.
Yeah. I've come down on the fact that it's actually not a good show, but I can't help but love it.
There are moments that I like. The finale, I think, is wonderful. The Spider-Verse finale that they did Spider-Verse years before anybody.
I believe that was probably the first Spider-Verse, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely the one that Dan Slott ripped off. Anyhow, moving on. I'm not a huge fan of this character that's on your list, but I have not read all of his stories either.
Mm-hmm.
Like I haven't read the Spider-Verse, but that would be Morlun.
I am a big fan of Morlun. Whenever I first got Marvel Unlimited, I needed a place to start, and so I started with J. Michael Straczynski's run on Spider-Man, and so his run opened with a Morlun story arc, and it's super cool because like he's got like these weird spider totems that like give him powers, but also give Peter powers, and that's actually how they explain the natural webbing that Peter would end up getting for the next couple years at that point. But I honestly love what they did with him in the Spider-Verse because to throw it back to one thing that you've made me watch, The One. Morlun's going from like universe to universe. He's kind of like an interdimensional serial killer, trying to kill all versions of Spider-Man. And I think that's so cool. I think that might be why The One resonated with me so much because I love those stories in general.
Well, I've got another movie that might resonate with you. We'll talk about it later.
All right.
Yeah, Morlun. I don't know. I find the spider totem stuff a little annoying, but I probably need to go back and reread it. I was reading it when it was coming out, when I would go up to the Barnes and Noble during my lunch break and just read everything off the comic book rack. And back in the day, hey, comic books are expensive.
Oh yeah.
Don't judge me. So, yeah, he's interesting. I'm surprised he hasn't showed up yet in the movies, and maybe he will in one of the Spider-Verse movies coming up.
That's what I'm wondering, because they're doing the Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and 2. I don't know who the villain's supposed to be, but like I might be able to see him as like the like the cliffhanger.
I would not be opposed to them doing the Spider-Man animated story again with Spider Carnage as the villain. I love that story.
Yeah.
Just a Peter Parker that's been driven insane by the Carnage symbiote is so
Yeah.
much fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that ending is so good. Okay, if you haven't seen it, is it on Disney Plus?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, check out the two-part finale of
Spider Wars is what it's called.
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's really great. Um, all right, yeah, Morloon. Um, I need to read some more stories of him in it. Not saying he's a terrible character. I haven't read enough with him in it. So, all right, moving on to my next pick, and this is one of Spider-Man's oldest villains, and that is the Chameleon.
I knew you'd have him on here.
I don't know why I like the Chameleon so much. He's just a guy who has different costumes, but I think that what's his name, Paul Jenkins, did some fun stories of him where he was kind of having this breakdown, and he like tells Spider-Man he loves him and all this crazy stuff, and Mary Jane beats him with a baseball bat. It's crazy. Those are some really fun stories to hunt down if you haven't read those. But he's he's a master of disguise. He's such a fun character because he's also, what are they, half brothers, him and Craven?
Yes.
So he's got like this, he's got this relationship with his brother who's obsessed with Spider-Man also. And when Craven died, it had a real effect on him. And, he really wanted to kill Spider-Man after that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think he's a fun character. What are your thoughts on Chameleon?
So throughout my life, you and I have talked a lot, and we have pitched our own movies. I feel like every time you pitch a Spider-Man movie, it is a Chameleon movie.
They've set it up, man. Bruce Campbell was in all those movies. You could just say he's the Chameleon.
I know. So honestly, Chameleon kind of my connection to Chameleon is kind of through you.
Well, I'll say this: a Chameleon cannot carry a movie by himself. He could not be the main villain. It would be
Oh no, I think that Chameleon and Craven together.
Yes.
I think together they could do. But as far as like, I don't know, like Chameleon. I'm one of the people who, and I wonder if like anyone else feels like this, where like there's a certain type of story that like you can acknowledge is not bad, but it's just like frustrating. And so for me, I've always found the doppelganger who's framing the hero.
Yeah.
I've always found that to be extremely like hard to watch and frustrating for me.
Yeah, I mean, any story where the hero's right and no one else believes him, yeah,
Mhm.
those could be, and I think they're designed to be frustrating for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
viewer.
No, and that's the thing is that's just that's a testament to how well the story is. And so I guess I'm saying that the Chameleon is a great villain because he is so frustrating whenever he appears.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I like him so much, but I just think he's fun, and I just remember him being behind the return of Peter's parents, and
Yeah.
there's more to that storyline we'll talk about here in a minute, but I don't know. I just think he's a fun character that they don't use enough, and like I said, he's from Amazing Spider-Man #1. He's one of the oldest villains.
Yeah.
So he's definitely not like an arch villain or anything like that, but he deserves more respect than he gets. So
Oh yeah.
So speaking of the Craven family, we'll move on to our next one, who is Chameleon's half brother. If I can find the picture. He almost made my list, and I think he was on my list. So I took him off.
I'm honestly surprised that he's not on your list. I love Craven. Craven is so cool. Kraven's Last Hunt is it's one of the greatest comic book stories of all time.
It's a very un-Spider-Man story. It is dark. It is so
Yeah.
dark.
But yeah, I really do enjoy Kraven as a villain. I so very much want what I always thought would be a cool what I always thought would be a cool thing for them to do in the movies is and this is what I thought that they were going to do before they decided to go with the Spider-Verse thing. Peter Parker is revealed to the world, and like he's been framed for all this horrible stuff that Mysterio did. And so in order to hunt down a superhero, the United States government hires someone such as Kraven to hunt him.
Or you could just have J. Jonah Jameson just put a bounty on Spider-Man's head.
Right, exactly. Something like that, you know.
I'm with you. I thought this was going to be the plot to No Way Home. I'm totally with you. This would be. I thought, and I think maybe the original plan was, big court trials with Daredevil and Kraven hunting him, and then because what I heard was the original end credit scene was going to be all the villains showing up,
right.
And then they decided we'll just skip that movie and jump straight into that.
Yeah, which I am satisfied, and I love the film that we got.
Oh yeah.
But this is just where I thought it was going. But yeah, I love Kraven, and honestly, you know how like there's this thing that we're doing right now where we're going back to the famous stories and kind of like we're taking the names, like the Clone Conspiracy, and like they did in Batman they did City of Bane, which was like just another version of Nightfall, and those are usually like they're okay, but Nick Spencer did one called Hunted with Kraven, and it was really good.
Yeah, I need to read Nick Spencer's run. I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm so behind on everything because right now I'm still reading through the 60s stories. So eventually I will get to it. But I'm still on volume 3 of Spider-Man Epics out of the 7 I have sitting over there. So, yeah. Yeah, Kraven, I always bring this up. There's a great Deadpool issue where Deadpool goes back in time and they took like an old Spider-Man comic book and just erased Spider-Man, put Deadpool in the place, and he's fighting Kraven in it. It's just great. So, all right. Yeah, Kraven, definitely a great character. He was, like I said, he was on my list for a long time, and then I think I put Kane on my list just because I knew you would not put Kane on yours.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
So, and I wanted to talk about the Clone Saga, and I didn't feel Jackal was a good enough villain to put on the list.
I thought about Jackal, but then I remembered that I hated him.
Jackal's kind of fun, but he's also kind of annoying because he's always like, "Oh, you killed me. Oh, there's 100 more clones. Okay,
right?"
And it's just kind of like they've done that over and over, and it's kind of like, okay, you need to do something else with him. So. All right. So move on to my next one. And it's interesting how many of these have actually appeared in movies and which ones haven't. Because there's a lot of these we've mentioned that have not been in any of these movies. This one has been in a movie. If I can find him, that would be Sandman. Again, this is another character. I don't know why I have such a big, why I like him so much. I think maybe because a lot of this is what comic books were coming out when I started reading comic books. The first stories I read. And one of the early stories I read with him was where he was calling the Avengers for help because he was trying to become a hero, but he was still kind of learning the ropes. And I just think he's interesting. I like him when he's trying to be a good guy, but he's still a bad guy at heart, you know? What are your thoughts on Sandman?
For me, my favorite version of Sandman, honestly, is Sam Raimi's Sandman.
Yeah.
I really do enjoy that one. My only other exposure to Sandman, other than that, really just is him as a bruiser.
Yeah, I did not like when they reset him. At some point, they reset him and said, "Oh yeah, he was always a bad guy. Ignore him being a hero for 10 years or whatever it was."
Right, right. But no, I do enjoy. I like Spider-Man 3. I like that movie, and so I'm a fan of him. Uh, in that film, I definitely. I don't know why you like him so much either, but at the same time, I don't know why Sam Raimi likes him so much.
I,
Because
I think it's a cool power. It's a cool visual.
yeah, it's definitely a visual thing.
I thought, I think the story Spider-Man Reign is not a good one, but I think he's interesting in it.
Mm.
So there's been some really interesting Sandman stories over the years. And I think he's almost like Clayface. There, you could do some interesting stories. Like I think they did a similar story with him having a daughter that wasn't really. It was like a part of him that split off and became its own character. I think Clayface
Oh
did
yeah.
the same story.
Yep.
In Batman. So
Those are always heartbreaking.
oh yeah. Yeah, they're man, we got to do a Batman animated series episode. Okay. But yeah, I put Sandman on the list. Like again, another classic character. I think it's interesting which classic characters ended up on our list, and then which ones did not end up on either of our lists. Like Electro was nowhere on either of our lists.
So I
just don't find that interesting. He's just kind of boring.
I think the most interesting version of him is the first episode in Spectacular Spider-Man with him, and that's it. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, by the way, we're talking about the guy who's also Red Skull's son, right?
Yeah, Red Skull's son. Yeah. Oh, that animated series. Okay. Let's see. How many we got left? 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are your top 4, I think we're at. So your next one is one I just have not read enough stories about to know anything about him. I know he plays a big part in Nick Spencer's run, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So this is Boomerang.
Yes. I love Boomerang, and honestly, this is sort of a cheat because like he's almost not a villain. He's just a minor annoyance. But I love Boomerang. I've sang the praises of Superior Foes of Spider-Man a number of times on this show, and I love that series, and I love Nick Spencer's run with him as as Peter's roommate. I think that his powers are pretty cool. Well, not powers, but just like his ability is like really cool. He's kind of like he's like poor man's Bullseye, honestly. That's probably the best way that I could that I could describe him. Is he is a parody of Bullseye, at least in my favorite interpretations of him. I'm actually not too familiar with the character, like in the older stuff. I'm talking mainly like some of the newer stuff. And he's definitely like a comic relief character. And I also love his costume. His costume just he looks like a Mega Man bad guy.
Yeah. Like I said, I haven't had enough exposure to his character to have an opinion on him. And I keep thinking of characters I left off the list. I think the Looter is one that a lot of people don't talk enough about. He's an old Stan Lee character that they brought back about a decade ago. And he's just funny because he inhaled meteor gas and got powers. And like, so in the modern stories, he's like in love with the meteor. Like he carries it around and they go on dates and stuff. And he's just crazy. And I just think he's a fun character. Again, I think that was Paul Jenkins. He had some really fun Spider-Man stories. So, All right, so we'll move on to Boomerang. Like I said, I don't have enough experience with him to have
Yeah.
much to add. Um, so next, after Boomerang, as my computer freaks out, I'm surprised that this character is not on your list. He's one of my favorites.
I considered him.
The I just think the lizard is such a cool character because you got Kurt Connors, who was Peter's friend, an ally, often ally. He's always helping him.
Mentor
And,
figure, honestly.
yeah, and then but when the lizard takes over, all that goes out the window. And I just think that it's a cool idea of a guy losing an arm and thinking, "Oh, well, lizards regrow tails. Why don't I?" It is. It's a cool idea. It's one of Stan Lee's better ideas. Um, and I just really like this character. He looks cool too. I mean, a lizard in a lab coat. It's
Oh
so
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Honestly, the reason I didn't put him on my list is just because at this point it'd be kind of like putting Black Cat or it'd be like putting Black Cat on my list because we're at the point where she's not a villain. And so for me, Lizard at this point is not really a villain for me either. Very much a force of nature who loses control, but when the chips are down, Kurt Connors will take control and uh, he'll be an ally to Spider-Man. That's the way I've always seen him. But I guess that is the generational gap right there because I grew up with Lizard as sort of a good guy.
Yeah, and there's been a variety of stories and who's in control, who's not in control. He's almost like the Hulk, really.
Yeah, yeah.
He's very much the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type character.
Mm-hmm.
But he's one of my favorites. I think they kind of screwed him up a little bit in the movie. Just put a stupid lab coat on him. Just put him in the
What
outfit.
they had the lab coat and then he ripped it off
Yeah,
and he looks like a Goomba.
yeah. It's not great.
um, I remember being in the movie theater watching No Way Home, and Cameron leans over to me. He's like, "So why is Lizard in this?" Because honestly, of anyone that's in that movie, Lizard really doesn't need to be in that movie.
No, that was just we gotta put an Amazing Spider-Man character in here.
We need to fill out the 6.
Yeah, and it's really, is it one from each movie? Yeah, it is one from each movie.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean that was just them filling it out, and they had talked about putting him in the lab coat in that one. They still didn't do it, so annoying. Anyhow, we got to speed this up because we've still got a lot of people to go through.
Yeah.
This next one, I get why he's so high on your list. I would not have put him so high. And I'm going to guess it's because of the Ultimate Spider-Man story. It has to be.
Yes, it is.
Uh,
it is Shocker.
Herman Schultz. Good old Shocker.
Herman Schultz, yes. No, it is 100% Ultimate Spider-Man.
So if you haven't read Ultimate Spider-Man, Shocker keeps showing up, and Peter just keeps making him a laughing stock, beating him up over and over and over again. It becomes a running joke. And then one time, Shocker gets to jump on him, and and Spider-Man almost dies. Yeah. And he's like, "I'm not a joke anymore to you." It's a great story. It's one of Bendis's best stories.
What I can't believe that superhero films in general haven't done this yet. But what Ultimate Spider-Man did was like Ultimate Spider-Man, each story arc, which traditionally 6-issue story arcs, they would open with him like just beating on the Shocker.
Yeah.
And so if I were to do a superhero film, I'd do it like a James Bond film, where like you've got your cold open and then your credit sequence and then the rest of the movie, and then that cold open doesn't have to necessarily have anything to do with the rest of the movie. It's just a way to get like a lesser known character.
Oh yeah, like I could see them like oh we're beating up the chameleon or the looter or somebody who doesn't deserve their own movie, but just to
Yeah.
fill out the universe, that there are more characters out there.
Yeah. And so what I thought would be cool is, let's say you do this 3 times in a row for 3 movies, it's Shocker, and then in that third movie, he's the main villain.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, you called it. I don't care much for 616 Shocker or any other version of Shocker except for Ultimate Shocker.
It's a good story.
Oh yeah.
There's some writers we love and we hate them at the same time, but when they knock it out of the park, they knock it out of the park, and that is one of his better stories.
Oh yeah.
Really cool. All right, I don't know why I love this character so much, but I do, and so he's on my list. He's pretty high on my list, actually.
Yeah.
And I think that there are great stories to tell with this character, and no one's ever taken the opportunity. But doggone it, Doppelganger's awesome. And I think this has to do with when I got into comic books.
Yeah.
Infinity Gauntlet and Infinity War were big stories, and Maximum Carnage that we talked about earlier. And I don't know why they have not done a story where a kid tells everybody, "Hey, I found Spider-Man." Everybody thinks he's full of crap. And then you find like he has Doppelganger in his treehouse, and he like befriends him, and like he's like threatening to eat bullies and stuff. I think there's a fun story there. And then I've also had this idea for a story where the Great Lakes Avengers recruit Spider-Man and Iron Man, and they get Iron Maniac and Doppelganger on the team. And they're like, I don't remember Spider-Man being,
Why does he have 6 arms?
Oh, he's had 6 arms before, but I don't remember him being, eating dogs and cats and stuff. What is wrong with him? I just think visually this is such a cool looking character. And I think there's a great Doppelganger story out there waiting to be told.
Yeah. I feel the same way about like Spider-Man, not Spider-Man, Batman villains. Spider-Man and Batman both have like these legendary rogues galleries, but there's like untapped potential in so many of their characters.
Oh yeah, and the frustrating thing about Batman, and we're getting way off topic, they always go to the Joker well, and it's like Batman's got so many other characters. You could go 10 years without telling the Joker story and tell so many great stories. You know,
like I couldn't tell you what the big Poison Ivy story is.
Right. Yeah.
And so I could tell you the big Joker story. I could tell you the big Green Goblin stories. I couldn't tell you the big Doppelganger story.
Yeah.
My exposure to him honestly is just Maximum Carnage.
Yeah, and like I said, there's not much to him. He's just all the clones or duplicates at the end of Infinity War went away, except for him for some reason. I don't know if they ever explained why. He just survived and just kept showing up. I think visually he's too cool to toss to the side.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's fun. He's part of the Carnage family.
Yeah.
Like here's our son, Doppelganger. It's like, okay, you guys are weird. All right, so let's get to our top threes. I need to find that Doppelganger Marvel Legend figure. Okay. All right.
I used to see it all the time.
Yeah. All right. This is probably the last great Spider-Man character that's been made, or villain that's been made.
Yes, I would agree.
Let me put the right name on screen. Mr. Negative. So tell us about Mr. Negative.
Oh, I love Mr. Negative. Mr. Negative, also known as Martin Lee, is the head of Feast, which is a sort of like a homeless shelter / soup kitchen in New York City. And so Martin Lee is kind of this good, kind-hearted philanthropist, but he harbors this dark secret, and there are arguments on like it was his upbringing that would cause him to go this way, suffering from a lot of abuse. But he is also this mob boss, Mr. Negative.
Hmm.
Um, and so honestly, I didn't have much exposure to Mr. Negative until the Spider-Man PS4 game. But like as soon as I saw him and I loved Mr. Negative, I went out and I started reading up. I started reading um his stories, and he had became one of my favorites. In fact, I think he should be um so the problem with the MCU Spider-Man is each film has kind of been loosely connected. One thing that I think would be cool for this next trilogy, the college trilogy, if you will,
Hmm.
is if they were a little bit more connected. What I would do is Peter um, gets involved at Feast, and Martin Lee, becomes like a big mentor figure for him, and that's kind of like an overarching thing throughout the trilogy. And you can,
Wasn't well, sorry to stop you. Wasn't Feast in the last movie?
yeah, it was,
Yeah,
because Aunt May works there.
yeah. Harry was, or Harry Norman was there, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so uh, he gets involved at Feast, and so Martin Lee kind of becomes like this mentor figure for him. But you see like little sprigs of Mr. Negative throughout the trilogy, and then he becomes this tragic main villain of the third film. It and at this point, I think I think one of the most important things for Spider-Man is a sort of billionaire arch nemesis, whether it's Roderick Kingsley or Norman Osborn or Wilson Fisk. And I'm not saying that Martin Lee is a billionaire, but he's a philanthropist. Uh, he's got his own company going on, um, and so I think instead of using Oscorp, since obviously Oscorp doesn't exist in this universe, I think Martin Lee is your prime candidate for being his next arch nemesis.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely want to see more of him, or see him, period, in the MCU.
Hmm.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next one. Um, this is interesting. We went in two totally different directions, and I think this is where we got into comic books, or what stories we like. I went with Harry Osborn as Green Goblin.
Okay.
Um, I think he's a more interesting character than Norman. When I started reading, Norman was still dead. He was just that. Oh, he's that goblin that killed Gwen. Okay, whatever. I think Harry's a much more tragic character. Um, and there was this, even when he died, he was constantly, his legacy kept popping up, like through when Peter's parents returned to stuff, and the Green Goblin just pop up the screen saying "Gotcha." That was so cool. That happened so many times, and it was just like Peter could not get rid of the Green Goblin legacy, and it was all Harry. And then they kind of, when they brought Norman back, they tried to retcon it, but I think they've retconned the retcon, and now it was Harry behind all that stuff. And I just think, there's something cool about your best friend also being your worst enemy, and I just love Harry. So
Oh yeah, I mean, like that's. I know they made a joke about it in No Way Home, but like there's definitely something to be said about um the new Goblin, and then Harry Osborn's Green Goblin and Amazing. Whether or not they were executed well.
yeah,
um, but yeah, no. I definitely I like Harry as Green Goblin. For me though, I've always my favorite interpretation of Harry Osborn is actually Spectacular.
hmm
And you're not exactly sure if he even is the Green Goblin.
yeah, he's, like I said, a great character. I was glad. that they brought him back, even though didn't make a whole lot of sense in One More Day or New Day, Brand New Day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they've kind of explained that. Although I heard it's very convoluted in the later Nick Spencer stories.
Yeah. So are you going on record saying that Kindred is your number 3?
Oh yeah, Kindred is my number 3 on my. That's yeah. Here, let me just fix that. Here, yes, Kindred Harry is our number 3. Oh yeah, but like I said, this is a great character. Really cool villain. So, all right, good old Kindred. So, all right, so we are up to your number 2. So let me pull him up. And that is Dr. Octopus.
Yes. I don't think that anyone would dispute me if I said objectively Dr. Octopus is Spider-Man's second greatest villain.
Well, we'll get to it.
But no, I love Dr. Octopus.
I think there's 3 characters you could consider to be Spider-Man's arch enemy, and
yes.
he's one of them.
Yeah, I mean, and they Green Goblin, Venom, and Dr. Octopus. Those are the big 3.
Yeah.
Dr. Octopus is like one of my favorites, but like sometimes because like there's so many interpretations of this character. I'm not a big fan of the Mad Scientist. I definitely love the tragic Dr. Octopus.
Oh yeah.
The Sam Raimi, the Spider-Man PS4 game, Dr. Octopus. That is how you do not a surprise villain, but that's how you do like a fallen villain, right? Is you don't try to trick me into thinking that they are a good guy, like Mysterio No Way Home or Far From Home. You're not gonna trick me like that. But what they did in the game is they made me not want Otto to turn evil. I was so pulling for him. And that's the thing is when it comes to Dr. Octopus, whenever he's trying to do good, I'm always pulling for him, but it doesn't always work out for him. And that's my favorite Dr. Octopus. For me, Dr. Octopus is kind of like the Mr. Freeze of Spider-Man.
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite characters. Yeah, I remember during the Clone Saga, which we'll bring up a lot. There's a story where he helped Peter. And he figured out that Peter was Spider-Man. Then I think Kane kills him. but yeah, he's I really like Dr. Octopus, and I'm a big fan of Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah, I love Superior because that's like whenever he tries to do good and it kind of works out for the most part.
For the most part,
yeah. Like he kills Peter, but
yeah, but that's just the idea of him being so arrogant. Think, oh, I could be a better Spider-Man, and then he does. For the most part, he does it.
Yeah, he is a better Spider-Man. Yeah, I love Otto Octavius.
Okay, so let's move on from him real quick. We'll go to one of my favorite Marvel characters. Period. And again, I think it has to do with when I started reading comic books. But man, I love Venom. I'm just a huge Eddie Brock fan. I think that's key. Eddie Brock is Venom. When you try to make Scorpion Venom, it does not work for me at all. I think it's stupid. Yeah. I think Scorpion's a dumb character anyways, but that's a different list.
Why are you ragging on my number 1?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Although I do love Agent Venom, but that's almost a different character.
Yeah, Agent Venom is definitely a different character, and that's like the only good guy Venom that I like. Any other time where Venom's a good guy, I'm not a fan.
But when you read those old Venom stories, he's always regretful when he kills an innocent because really his beef is just with Peter,
Yeah.
and I think that's so much fun that he's it's really this jilted lover is what he is,
Hmm.
and he just wants to get back at his ex and destroy him.
Yeah.
um, and I'm just a huge fan of Venom,
Oh yeah. The Venom movie is one of the greatest romantic comedies of all time.
which I still have not seen,
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean, it's layered like a romantic comedy. It's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, I've talked at length about the symbiotes in general. In terms of Venom, um, like I said, I'd say Carnage is probably just kind of edges it out for me. But you don't get Carnage without Venom. So
and Carnage almost made my list. I think he was. I think it was Carnage was on my list at one point. Both Green Goblins, Craven, Kingpin, who's not on either of our lists, was almost on my list.
Kingpin for me, like I thought about him, but for me, he is a Daredevil villain.
Yeah. So let's get to our number one because we have both gone we've gone a little long here tonight.
I love Spider Man.
We could talk about this for hours. We're just scraping the surface here. Your number one was definitely on my list at some point. I removed him. Norman Osborn.
Yes, I love Norman Osborn as Green Goblin. Like I said when we were talking about Mr. Negative, I think one of the most integral things is a billionaire being Peter's arch nemesis. Um, I love the dichotomy between like his villain is like one of the richest people in the world, and yet he lives in poverty. I love that. That he does good, and that is sort of what causes him to be uh poor. And then Norman is just this evil bad guy and uses his wealth to and he uses his wealth to I'm trying to finance that, you know. Um, and so that's why I find him fascinating, because like really is the goblin the uh on above the food chain of the spider, you know, like where's the relation there? I don't think there's any relation between their gimmicks, but it really is just as the people that they are, that's really the cool dichotomy. um I also love Norman as a father, um because he's the worst.
Oh, he's terrible.
I mean, like, so my dad has this huge issue with like the horrible father trope, which at this point really is a trope, and I think it comes from Norman Osborn.
There's no wonder that Harry turned to drugs and turned to everything else because
Right.
yeah, Norman is just terrible to him, and yeah, like I said, he almost made my list. But to me, when I started reading comic books, he was dead.
Yeah.
He was just that guy killed Gwen Stacy, and it was cool when they brought him back to the end of Clone Saga. But I haven't been happy with everything they've done with him since then. He
Yeah.
just kind of became like this. I don't like Norman when he's like his villainous is so big that Spirit inspired me. Now he's a villain to the whole Marvel universe. I kind of just want him to be in the Spider-Man universe.
You know what's weird? I actually don't mind it, but I don't like the Green Goblin being a villain for for the Marvel universe.
Yeah, if he's gonna be for the Marvel universe, just make him just Norman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Norman or Iron Patriot or something like that, you know.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, also, I would argue this. I don't believe there has been a bad adaptation of Norman Osborn.
I don't remember him that well in the Amazing Spider-Man, but yeah, for the most part, he's been excellent in every. Um, I mean, I don't like him just dying in a hospital bed or whatever was going on in Amazing Spider-Man, but
Right. Well, I mean, that's Amazing Spider-Man too. That's
yeah,
like there's a lot more going on in that movie.
uh huh. Okay, let's move on to our final pick, and we've already talked about him.
I figured as soon as I said that he's objectively number 2, I knew he'd be your number 1.
I mean, he's just awesome. Doctor
Yeah.
Octopus is such a cool character, and to me, he is Spider-Man's arch enemy. He's kind of like just the opposite, the scientific nerd who's on the other end of the spectrum, and his powers are just cool. Visually, he's just cool, and he's just the greatest Spider-Man villain ever. He's just, I love Venom, but Doctor Octopus is cooler, so, and we've kind of already talked about him, but
Yeah. I think that's interesting though that like Spider-Man's big 3 are all opposites of Spider-Man in some way.
yeah,
Like obviously Venom is the anti-Spider-Man. Eddie Brock is the anti-Peter Parker. Like there's
yeah,
that. But then Dr. Octopus is Spider-Man if he was a bad guy because he's got the 8 limbs thing going on like a spider does, and he's very smart. And then like I talked about with Norman, there's a financial differential between them as opposites. So no, and I didn't realize all of that until we talked about it now.
yeah. And there's so many other characters we did not talk about. Spider-Man just really has a really great rogues gallery, like we said. I mean, so a lot of them I don't love, but they're interesting. They're visually interesting. So, Scorpion
Yeah.
and Rhino and Electro and so on.
Yeah. The only version of Vulture I like is Michael Keaton, so that's why he's not on
the only
this.
Vulture I liked is when he had like the vampire powers, so he could drain your youth away. I thought that was a cool take on the Vulture.
I did think about putting Morbius on this list, but I didn't want to start anything because apparently it's the worst movie ever.
I mean, I like Morbius as a character, but he's one of those ones I don't view as a villain.
Right, exactly. He's up there kind of like Black Cat or Lizard for me, and the fact that like he's barely a villain.
So that was our top 10 list. Who did we miss? There, like I said, there's hundreds of Spider-Man villains. I mean, we didn't put Hypno Hustler on here,
Hydro Man.
Hydro Man. Oh, he's the worst. Okay. He's such a lame Sandman ripoff. All right. But yeah, if we forgot somebody that's like your favorite character, please list in the comments. We'd love to hear your takes. So now let's do something a little different. A segment we haven't really done. That's where we're going to review something that one of us saw. And I got to talk about this movie. We've been hyping it up for a while, but Everything, Everywhere, All at Once finally got a bigger release. I was able to go see it. We talked about seeing Sonic 2 this weekend, and finally I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get up early Saturday morning and just go by myself and go see this. And we didn't quite know what to make of the trailer because it looked bizarre.
Yeah.
It reminded us of the one where they're trying to save the multiverse, and it's just great. I don't think it's for everybody. It's very absurd. It's weird. It's this balance of it's very heartfelt, and there's this beautiful story of this family that's falling apart, and then it's just totally wacky. It's almost like it reminds me a little bit of Kung Fu Hustle and how it's very silly, but then there's a really heartfelt story if you're paying attention to it.
You just sold me on it, man. I love Kung Fu Hustle.
It's not for all audiences. There's a couple little inappropriate things. I'll tell Caleb after we're off the air, but I would not like. It's weird if you cut these two little moments. I would be okay with showing like a 12-year-old this, but with those moments in there, it's like
right, yeah.
So, but just a real quick, anything I'm about to spoil is literally the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Okay.
This is the story of Evelyn and her family. She has an overbearing disapproving father that's coming to visit. She runs a laundromat that's having tax issues, and their marriage is kind of falling apart. She's having issues with her daughter. Um, and it's like Evelyn's so busy trying to keep the laundromat running that she's pushing everybody else away, you know? And I think this happens to a lot of us. Um, Although you're pretty young, but you hit these points where you kind of hit a wall and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And then you do, you know? And I think that's part of the point of the movie is that no matter how bad things get, your family is still there, and they're more important than what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But so she goes to the IRS to go deal with the taxes, and that's when she finds out that there is a multiverse, and she's the only one that could save it. And she's like, I don't know. The movie just goes completely off the rails at that point. It's like 10 minutes in. It just goes.
Yeah, no, that escalated when in your explanation.
And so it's so many absurd moments that are happening so fast. Like I really need to go see it again because things are happening so fast and their jokes are happening so fast. I mean, I was laughing so hard at this movie. And then it's like pulling at your heartstrings at the same time. And it's kind of like, who's it? Robert Frost, the Path Not Taken. It's kind of like, okay, if my life is here, but what if I didn't marry this person? What would my life look like over here? And you know, she's kind of exploring those things. And then there's these moments of temptation of, well, I really wish I was on this one over here. You know, this life over here where I made these other choices. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting exploration of all that. But it gets, like I said, it is absurd. And I'm starting to realize that these are my kind of movies where it's a heartfelt story, but at the same time, it's willing to go there and just go completely off the rails and silly. And I just think this is great. The acting is phenomenal in this movie. I don't have their names in front of me, so forgive me. But the guy that played Short Round in Indiana Jones, I was watching some interviews of him, and you know he was Data in Goonies. he basically he couldn't find any roles after that. They just were not casting Asian leads or Asian characters in movies. So finally he just stepped away. And then he saw, I'm gonna get the name of the movie wrong. Rich Asians?
Crazy Rich Asians.
Crazy Rich Asians. He saw that and he said he realized that Hollywood had kind of changed, and so he's in this movie and he's phenomenal. He's so good in it, and he's kind of like he's having to play multiple characters almost because there's the version from the other universe that acts different. Then when he's this way, his whole body language changes and stuff, and he's so good. Jamie Lee Curtis is awesome in this.
Oh, she's in this?
Oh yeah, you see the bottom right corner character, the IRS agent.
Yeah,
that's her.
Oh, okay.
She is awesome in this, and like I said, everybody's kind of playing multiple characters because you're seeing them in different the multiverse, you know, and then like I said, I'm gonna get everybody's names wrong. James Hong, is that his name?
Yes.
I mean, he's 93. He's great in this movie. You know, at the beginning he's playing like this feeble old version, and you're like, okay, 93, that's what he'd be like. And then later he's not playing that way, and you're like, oh wow, this guy still got it at 93. You know. And then the girl's playing the daughter. She's fantastic. She's so good.
Is she like a teenage daughter, or is she like a kid daughter?
She's like a teenage daughter.
Okay.
I'm a little unsure what age she actually is. Like, I wasn't quite sure if she's still living with them or she's about to move out. She's probably about 18-ish. But she's just great, and I can't give away why she's so great. But she's great. But yeah, there's a scene where the film turns into a silent movie, and there's, I mean, not really like a black and white movie, but it's silent, and it's just two rocks sitting there with subtitles, and it's like one of the best scenes of the movie. It's so good, and I know this sounds like the ramblings of a crazy person, but all the stuff just works. It is, the more I describe it, the more insane it's going to sound. But it is just a lot of fun, and I've heard some people complain it's a little long, maybe a little, but it's like 2 hours 20 minutes, but it's not terrible. There's no end credit scene, so don't worry about that. Um, but yeah, this movie needs a lot more love. I think it's made like $8 million so far, but they made it for 25 million, and it looks like it does not look like a $25 million movie. um, but yeah, I cannot hype this movie enough. It's we talk about the honeymoon effect when you go see a movie and you think it's the greatest thing ever, and then when you see it again like 6 months later, you're like, it wasn't as great as I remember. But I really love this movie. I could see this being on like my top 5 list for years to come. It's
Okay.
it's just great. Um, highly recommend this movie. Again, like I said, it's not getting enough love. Um, and this is definitely going to be a cult classic one day, no
I
question.
I think this is currently the highest rated movie of the decade right now.
Um,
Like
possibly there's
like
something else that just came out that has crazy high ratings. I can't remember what it was. But yes, it has a crazy high Rotten Tomatoes scores. I've heard a couple of people say they didn't like it, but I get that because it is crazy. It is. If that's not your thing of just a movie just going totally insane, you may not like it. But I love this movie. I really, really love this movie. And now I want to go back and check out their other movie, Swiss Army Man. Um, that was the one where yeah,
Radcliffe, isn't it?
Radcliffe, where he's playing a corpse or something. I don't know what's going on in
Yeah.
that movie.
Yeah. I've seen the one scene. Honestly, you know what? I I remember Swiss Army Man was an Oscar nominated movie. This this might get the love come Oscar season next year.
It's hard to say because usually when they release a movie early in the year, it usually is like the November December movies are the ones that get the nominations.
Yeah.
Um, but I would love if this got some love because it's great. It's just great. That's all I can tell you. And if I say more anything else, it's gonna start ruining the movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's a joke that I've told my kids the joke and they have laughed. they, and now they want to see the movie because of that joke. And I'm like, I don't know if I can show it to you, but it's so good. And at the end of the day, it's about a mother and a daughter and their relationship, and it's fantastic. All right, we like I said, we've gone a little long tonight, so let's hop to our final segment.
Well, I mean, next week is Easter, so like I assume we won't have a show next week to be with our family. So we'll just call this the extra long.
Okay, that's a good point. Because I think our church is having a special service next Sunday night, so I didn't know if I'd be here anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about He Made Me Do It. This is the part of the show where we take turns making each other read or watch or play a game that we haven't experienced before. So this week I gave Caleb a task of watching Disney's Gargoyles, namely the first 5 episodes. So, Caleb, what'd you think of Disney's Gargoyles?
Man, this really this takes me back because it's one of those things where like Castlevania, we're kind of cheating because I remember watching this as a kid, but I remembered nothing.
Yeah.
And then as I'm watching it, I start to remember a little bit. But oh man, this show is just so it's so cool. I can't believe Disney made it.
That's the
Uh,
thing. I mean, there's literally a massacre in the first two episodes, and it's like
yes.
Disney made this.
Yeah. Well, and so like the massacre is just being like it's breaking stone, right?
Right.
The thing is like the two bad guys, they fall down a cliff and die. um
Uh
like
huh. The
that's
captain's guard and Harkon. You talking about? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Uh there are a lot of characters, forgive me if I can't remember anything
No, that's
but
fine.
Goliath. But no, this is just such a cool show. And it very much takes homage from Batman the Animated Series. It's in that dark deco style.
Hmm.
Um one thing that I didn't remember, because I have like vague memories of gargoyles and how like they would like peer off of the building. I didn't remember that like the actual castle was the top of the building.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. Um let's see what else. I think them having to name each other is fascinating, like being named after parts of New York City is super cool. I think there's one named Hudson,
Hudson, Bronx, Brooklyn,
Le-
Broadway, Lexington. Yeah.
Lexington, yeah. And then
Well,
what
later on, they meet their clones, and they're all named off after California cities and stuff.
that's funny. This is Sacramento. Uh,
Yeah, Malibu and Hollywood, and yeah,
what's the girl's name? Demona?
Demona.
Okay. Um but yeah, this is so cool because like not only does it remind me of Batman, but it's like Batman meets X-Men. Um because Goliath very much has that Professor X, we must protect the humans even though they've done horrible things to us. And Demona is like, I hate them. um
Yeah, it very much is the mutants thing. Now you mentioned that. Yeah.
yeah. um and by the way, like Keith David goes way too hard on this. Like he doesn't need to do what he does uh in this, but he gives it his all. Like, what I'm trying to think of the line. um uh I've been denied everything, even my vengeance, or something like that. Like,
Oh, this is the great thing about the show is the first five parts are pretty good, and then it just gets better from here. They
mhm,
keep building on stuff and things you thought you knew you don't know, and the mystery of Demona is so good. Demona is like my top three favorite Disney characters of all time. She is so fascinating, and it's driving me crazy that I cannot find her action figure anywhere. But um, definitely one of my favorite characters is Demona. She's so tragic, and you find out why as the series goes on.
I mean,
And
like she was alive for several thousand years. I something had to have happened.
right, because I'm trying to remember what her story is in the first five. She claims that she was also frozen in
Mm.
stone,
Mm.
but she's
Yeah,
not quite telling the truth.
yeah,
And she appears
um,
to die at the end of this five-parter,
yeah,
which is fun.
yeah.
And Xanatos is such a great villain. I love
Yes,
Xanatos.
Xanatos is what Lex Luthor aspires to be.
He's so cool. And the
Jonathan
voice,
Frakes.
yeah. And then Maria Sirtis is Demona. So there's a lot of Star Trek voice actors on here.
Hmm.
Um, just a phenomenal voice cast. I can't think of his name, but the guy who plays Patrick Starr and SpongeBob is Broadway. You got Ed
Oh yeah.
Asner. Uh, and the cool thing is, later on, their cop friend Lisa,
Mhm.
she she's not just like the April O'Neil. She actually gets involved in several of the episodes. Like she's involved in the fights. She's doing stuff, and she's just a cool character.
Yeah, I've heard the April O'Neil comparison.
Yeah.
But for me, she actually reminded me of um did you ever watch the Batman from like 2005?
I've seen episodes. I
Okay.
wasn't like I didn't. They changed Mister Freeze and made me mad.
No, no, their Mr. Freeze is not good.
Yeah.
But in season 2, uh, Batman has kind of this liaison partner on the Gotham Police Force named Ellen Yin.
Yes.
And she, like, whenever, like, Lisa Matza
Mhm.
really reminded me of her
Yeah.
in a sense. And I would assume, like, sh- even more so as the show goes on.
Yeah. And so, like I said, this season one, they started introducing more characters like the Pack, Macbeth. Macbeth is so cool. Um, and then you start finding out more of what happened. Um, you find out Damona's story, and then from there they just start world building, and you start learning more and more about what happened to the eggs after this beginning part. You know what happened to the Magus and Catherine and the eggs and Tommy and all that, and it's a cool story. And then they just start filling out the whole world. They usually literally go on a world tour and just start meeting all these characters over the world. They're just building this massive universe, and it's such a shame that it ends. I mean, it has a decent enough ending where it ends, but they have so many more plans. Um, if you go to Greg Weisman's website, he lists, I think it's 4 or 5 spinoffs he wanted to do. The most interesting one is one that's set like 200 years in the future, and there's this invasion going on, and so some of them are descendants of the Gargoyles are still there, and uh, and then there's other characters that are still alive. I won't spoil who, but it's just fascinating, and there's some time traveling characters that are showing up, and I really want to see that spinoff. I think it'd be really cool. And that's all I'll say. Like I said, if you love Gargoyles, do yourself a favor, check out Greg Weisman's website. Greg Weisman has done a lot of other shows we love: Spectacular Spider-Man, Young Justice.
Yep.
He was involved with Star Wars Rebels for a little bit. Um, he's just one of the greats, and Disney is stupid that they will not give him another chance on Gargoyles.
I
they
don't even,
really,
I
they
don't even
really
know what he's
should.
I don't even know what he's working on right now.
He's still doing Young Justice right
Is
now.
he still on Young Justice? Okay.
Yeah. Which there's new episodes of that I need to go watch. Because apparently 4 new episodes have dropped, so I need to I need to make time to watch those. So.
I still haven't watched season 3 yet.
Yeah. Very good. So we'll probably revisit Gargoyles again some other time. I'll probably have you watch City of Stone sometime. It's a multi-part story where you get Damona's full backstory. But that's an episode for another day. So what do you have for me for You May Be Do It?
So I've kind of been in a Star Warsy mood.
Okay.
And I really wanted to save a lot of my Star Wars recommendations for May, but I want to sneak one in sooner. So what I would like you to watch is my personal favorite story arc in the Clone Wars, which I'll have to send you the episodes. It's a season 4 arc. It is the Cad Bane Obi-Wan Kenobi deception arc.
Okay, so for whatever reason, like I saw most of season 1, then I like missed a whole season of of Clone Wars, and then I came back in, then I missed some more. So I've seen chunks of Clone Wars, but there's other chunks haven't seen or I've forgotten, and I definitely have not seen the Boba Fett Cad Bane stuff.
Yeah,
which is weird because I'm a huge Boba Fett fan, but well, it happens.
Yeah, and they pay it all off in Book of Boba Fett.
yeah, I know. Cool. So yeah, definitely send me that list. I'll have 2 weeks to watch it. So
Yeah,
we will not be doing an Easter episode next week. We decided, so that's fine. Cool. That's our show for the night. We went a little long, but if you get a chance, definitely check out Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like I said, it's just not getting enough love. Though it's weird that I'm pushing it so hard because it's not like they're gonna make a sequel.
yeah.
It's a one and done. But
I love those. I love one and dones.
yeah, everything does not need to be a franchise. But it's just such a cool movie. I guarantee it's like nothing you've ever seen before. So, but that's our show for tonight. Hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward. We don't know what our next show will be in 2 weeks. That'll be what, the 24th. So we'll be getting close to Doctor Strange. When does Doctor Strange come out? It's like the first week in May.
Yeah.
So sometime soon, it may be our next episode. I'm not sure. We will do an episode about our favorite alternate realities, alternate timelines, and stuff.
Yeah.
So that may be the next episode. So, but until then, this has been Pop Culture Shark. I'm Final Monkey.
And I'm Caleb.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye.
See ya.